Hey, four-pack fans. Want to get a look behind the curtain as to how we draft? Then join us this Sunday at 8 p.m. when we live stream the draft for our Downtown Fantasy Football League run by our very own Frankie Santiago. It'll be a night of laughs, terrible picks by some of our league mates and probably Frankie, and hopefully some insightful looks as to how we pick. Hope to see you all there. All right, welcome in to another episode of the Fantasy 4-Pack Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Frankie Santiago, Matt Vitale. We're talking some of our favorite players this week. We're calling them our stamps of approval, if you will. The guys that we are personally endorsing to have excellent fantasy seasons. No, you may not yell at me if they don't. I take no responsibility for any actual performances. Frankie, you can yell at, especially when Aaron Jones goes.
All of my disclaimers are in my takes.
But before we get to that, we have to show off our delicious beer and go through quite a bit of news this week. So this week we're drinking a specialty beer. I don't know if any of you guys have actually ever heard of this before. It's called Landshark, maybe? Landshark, I think, is the name of it. It's a premium island-style lager made from the good folks over at, I guess, Margaritaville. I've never heard of that brewery, but, you know, that's what you get with these microbrews.
Frankie, would you call this a summer crusher? The answer is yes, it's a summer crusher.
I mean, it is technically, I guess I would call it a summer beer. I've never seen anyone drinking Landshark in the winter, but...
What is an island-style lager?
I don't know, man. You're the beer person. I just drink it.
Because, it just tastes like a normal lager. But
I think it's an island-style lager because it's made by Jimmy Buffett, Frankie.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure...
I don't have facts that say that he actually brews the beer. I assume that he just puts his name on it, but maybe he is putting in time, brewing the beer.
Fair enough. So is this a yay from you, Vitale?
Oh yeah, I mean this is basically just like a regular light beer, just a little more flavored, I guess is the way you'd put it. So
all right, so it doesn't suck in the Vitale column.
Yeah, as the non-IPA boy here, it'll get my stamp.
All right, well let's go into some news. We do have quite a bit of news today. Do you guys want to do Leonard Fournette first or last? He's gonna be the longest piece of news, I think. So
yeah, we should.
Yeah, let's save him for last.
Okay. In that case, I will go up the list because I wrote down Leonard Fournette's name first. Cooper Kupp, minor ankle sprain, will not practice this week. They're saying it's not a big issue, and it's just basically to give him a week off to heal up the ankle. Shouldn't affect his, in-season status at all. Are you guys worried about this?
For me, it's just one of those minor. If I see it as if you're waffling between Cooper Kupp and another guy in his ADP range, this might make me flop towards them, just because, as we've talked about before, a good early start could make or break your fantasy season. And even though he's going to be a good fantasy receiver this year, if he misses week 1 or 2, if this thing keeps nagging him, or if he has poor production because of it, it could cost you a couple games.
Fair.
Not super worried. I was already looking at Woods a little bit more anyways, personally. So this is probably going to strengthen that opinion.
Well, he's been going up boards and Cooper Kupp's been going down, so...
Yeah.
Hope you're ready to pay that increased price.
Not super worried about it.
Another potential faller on draft boards, Devin Singletary, hampered with fumbling issues so far in camp. He has been falling down ADP. He's currently sitting at 61. I didn't like that situation to begin with the word that Zach Moss sounded like he was, showing up in camp and looking like a pretty good back. I like it even less now that Devin Singletary apparently has a case of the Butterfingers.
Yeah, it's Zach Moss Day. I've been as much of a darling as Singletary was to me last year. I have been taking Zach Moss a lot in mock draft.
That train fast.
Yeah, I've been taking a lot of Zach Moss.
It seems to be a common trend with you, Frankie, this year is being full steam on a train and then slowly just deciding to get off a couple stops early.
Well, it's because I'm seeing the bridge out sign ahead when nobody else does. Or when everybody else did, but I didn't want to see it myself.
Carson Wentz, day-to-day with a lower body injury considered minor, but when you're the Eagles and everyone on your roster is hurt, I don't think there's much to take hope with in the fact that it's just minor. It's like, ooh, good. Maybe Carson Wentz will be ready for week 1.
But what about Jalen Reagor, Ian?
What about Jalen Reagor?
Well, just to speak to both of those injuries, Rager's and Wentz's, I think this just the only big take I have out of this is obviously they're both their stocks drop in my book, and
Yeah.
Ertz and Goddard now have a little bit more of a shine to them to me.
Well, keep in mind, Goddard does still have that thumb fracture. Also, they lost Andre Dillard, who was a tackle for them. Very good, actually, at his job. Not going to be available this season. Out for the year already. Miles Sanders, medium hamstring injury. He's probably going to start week 1, but he's missing his 2 best offensive linemen. As Frankie mentioned, Jalen Reagor, he has a shoulder injury that's considered severe enough that he's probably going to miss week 1. He's already considered doubtful for it. I mean, Alshon Jeffrey on the pup. Jalen Reagor missing week 1. Miles Sanders banged up with a hammy, which we know can linger. They're missing their 2 best offensive linemen. Carson Wentz is already a little banged up. Their only healthy receiver right now is Deshaun Jackson, who we know plays 14 snaps and then also gets injured. I mean, I guess add your Greg Wards now.
My Cowboys are sitting there like, excellent. Let it flow through your veins.
Frankie, I want to remind you, your Cowboys had this exact same situation last year, and they came in second to the Eagles and did not make the playoffs.
That was off a garbage time Zach Gart's TD. I don't want to talk about it.
I think the only thing this really... The biggest thing this does for me is it boosts Ertz. Like, if everyone's hurt, if everyone on that team is hurt, suddenly I'm much more interested in taking Ertz in the 4th or 3rd if I'm looking at a tight end in that range. I'd probably rather have him than Mark Andrews. Because we know Ertz is an elite pass catcher who gets a lot of volume. I mean, if he's going to be one of the only options in that system, he could easily vault past Kittle or Kelsey as long as, at least he and Carson Wentz stay healthy.
Yeah, he's definitely someone I'm still interested in. I am flirting more with that, taking an upper tier tight end. Probably not a Kelsey, probably not a Kittle, just where they're going. Just because I like running backs and wide receivers in that area a little too much. But I'm certainly more on the train for a league that maybe shies away from tight ends and they might fall to a favorable position. But with Frankie in our league, that's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey and Kittle, they're both second-round guys at this point. I mean, Kittle's almost a first-round guy at this point. Like, they're to the point where you're not really getting a value on them anymore. If you want a guy with their upside, especially, like I said, mostly just because of all the injuries, but if you want a guy with their upside, but at like a 1 to 2 round discount, 3rd or 4th, you could do a lot worse than Zach Ertz. He has, as the default last man standing, has piqued my interest.
Yeah, I can see myself, again, we've talked about this. If he falls to me at 3.8, I'm probably thinking about it.
Oh, we know you're already thinking about it, Frankie. I've told you, even when you've vehemently denied it, I've been like, no, you're thinking about a tight end. It's easy to say, no, I won't do that tight end at 3.8 when you're sitting in your apartment 3 weeks out from the draft. But when draft day happens and you're staring directly at,
Draft day 4 days away.
Travis Kelce or Zach Ertz at 3.8, you're like...
Oh, Travis Kelce's still there at 3.8, I mean...
Yeah, exactly, I know. The itch comes back.
Yeah, like I said, we all know that when Pat Mahomes rolls around to your second pick, you're just like, Pat Mahomes, and you're going to forget all the talk about waiting on that quarterback, and just you'll be coming out of the 3rd round, be like, I have a quarterback and a tight end now, and I have 1 running back and no wide receivers.
That is something to speak on, though, because going early tight end, if you're going to go tight end, you either go early or you go late. The middle round tight end is just a waste of a pick, basically, I think, in my opinion at least. If you're going early tight end, or if you want to grab one of these 2 early quarterbacks, you can't go tight end also. I mean, because you can still piece together a good roster around Mahomes or Jackson, or you can piece together a good roster around Kittle or Kelsey. But if you're using 2 of your first 4 picks on a tight end and a quarterback, one of your 2 primary skill positions are going to be garbage.
I can tell you from experience, it's going to be wide receivers.
And speaking of skill positions, in holdout news, Alvin Kamara and Joe Mixon may both be doing hold-ins. I know the news been dancing around Dalvin Cook also that he may join them in holding in if he enters the season without a contract. Mixon is the one I'm most hopeful about based on the news. It sounds like his is probably migraine related. So unless migraine is a code word for not practicing because he doesn't have a contract, I'm least worried about that. I mean, the week of migraines isn't great, but I'm least worried about Mixon, I think, at this point. But I do think there's a legitimate chance that owners that draft Kamara or Cook could end up with not having them for at least part of the season if they decide that they don't want to put their bodies on the line until their teams pony up money.
Yeah, it's something I always, especially with how many injuries we're already dealing with this season and the just risk of COVID that's going to be prevalent, especially as it gets colder and COVID is more active in the cold. I could see that, like I said, this is just more reasons we spoke about. Get depth, get that, spend up a little bit for that extra running back in the sixth that you like. I don't really need him because he's going to be on my bench, but
and I think it also matters more to I think that vaults some of those other running backs in that range over guys like Kamara or Cook. Like, yeah, they're talented, but like everyone that you're taking in the first round is talented. Wouldn't you rather have Derrick Henry instead of Dalvin Cook, where Henry's not holding out? I mean, he just got paid. Or like, wouldn't you rather have CEH, who's playing in his first year? He has to show that he can do things to maintain a roster spot. I mean, like Nick Chubb, like I said, Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders, Kenyon Drake, all of these guys who they're either playing for a contract or they're early enough in their contracts that they're not going to get re-signed. I mean, honestly, it moves the non-Kamaras and Cooks up the board for me because I'm very risk averse. I'd rather take them instead of ending up with Le'Veon Bell from when he held out.
Or not even exclusive to running backs. I mean, if wide receivers are falling far enough where they're going to return value at their position, I mean, take a wide receiver there and then get a running back on the spot.
Oh, sure. I would definitely rather take Michael Thomas than Alvin Kamara at this point in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about returning value, and if these guys are going to hold out and not give you any value at all, potentially for weeks, even if they play later. I mean, we talked about it several times. Those early W's are super important.
Yeah, missing out if you take Alvin Kamara and then Alvin Kamara doesn't play for 4 weeks because he forces the Saints' hand, you could be up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. So definitely something to keep an eye on, especially a lot of drafts happening this week. I mean, most fantasy owners are going to be doing their drafts either this week or this weekend. So just keep that in the back of your mind if you are sitting at the 4 to 6 range and you're looking at Alvin Kamara versus CEH or Alvin Kamara versus Miles Sanders or Alvin Kamara versus Kenyon Drake, just Alvin Kamara versus Derrick Henry. Maybe that's a little bit of a tiebreaker for you. And then the biggest news, the stroke of midnight is news as far as fantasy is concerned. Leonard Fournette, Uncle Lenny, cut, just outright waived by the Jacksonville Jag. I woke up this morning and I was like, let's see what's going on Twitter. Any news? I have to hold up. What's this? I had like 7 text messages. Like, did you see Leonard Fournette got cut? I was like, what? It's like 9:30 in the morning. How did this happen already?
That was the first thing that Brad texted me this morning. He was like, Uncle Lenny cut. I was like, wait, what?
I was...
Yeah, got to work at 7:50, opened up my phone, I was like, what? Check Twitter. Oh, yeah. And I just spammed it out to anyone I care to know just to make sure. I was like, am I seeing this right?
It was a 5-alarm fire in my brain when I woke up, had not a drop of coffee in my hand yet, just looking at my phone and just Leonard Fournette cut. I'm like, huh.
So has anything come out as to why?
They said it was performance related, which is code for they didn't want him anymore. We knew they didn't want him. They tried to give him away. In the report said they couldn't even get a 7th round pick for him. They tried to give him away, but no one wanted to trade for him because they knew the Jaguars were going to cut him if they didn't trade for him. So now he's just out there. He's going to go somewhere. He's too talented of a running back, and he's too young to not go. I mean, he's only 27, I think. So
this is only his 4th year in the league.
Yeah, he's not an old man.
4th overall pick in 2017, and now he's just out there for free. Like, it makes you think about the fact that Adam Gase just paid a 7th rounder for Kalen Ballage.
Well, he's an idiot.
Yeah, and then I love the
25. Excuse me. I, as is tradition with Leonard Fournette, I overestimated how old he was.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was talking about this on Twitter with someone earlier. I was like, I feel like he's kind of got that Randall Cobb Brandon Cooks effect for me, where it's like I feel like he's been in the league forever.
Do you think that's why no GMs traded for him? They all were like, why are you trying to trade me a 37-year-old running back? I honestly I feel bad for Fournette because releasing him at this point, this close to the season, is kind of doing him dirty. Doesn't really give him a ton of time to find a new situation. He's just kind of, taking whatever comes to him. I do think it could be good for him because I think there's some good offense that he got. I mean, Bruce Arians has expressed interest. The Patriots could use him, obviously, because we have just garbage. We have an actually ancient Lamar Miller. Sony Michel is the knees of a 50-year-old. And then it's just Damian Harris, who could be good, but we don't know. He was just a third-round pick. Chicago could use him with Dave Montgomery potentially missing time. That Kyle Shanahan would love to get his hands on him out in San Francisco, get himself easily the most talented running back in that bunch out there. He's been potentially linked to the Rams. Give Cam Akers a little time to develop, and just use Leonard as the hammer to the Cam Akers or Darrell Henderson scat back role. I mean, I think Pittsburgh has potentially been linked to him because of their health issues at running. I mean, Anthony McFarland Jr., the guy they just drafted, not the healthiest of guys either. So Pittsburgh's been linked to him. There's a lot of very interesting landing spots for him, I think. But without knowing for sure where he's going to go, if you guys we're drafting after this podcast, where are you guys taking him? Or we're drafting tomorrow afternoon, where are you guys taking him? I know for me, if he falls for like the 8th or 9th rounds, like Matt Breida, Kerryon Johnson, Marlon Mack range, that's where I'm taking a shot at him because wherever he goes, I think he has a good chance of just outright taking the job. So if I can get a Leonard Fournette volume back in the 8th or 9th round, sign me up.
I'll probably take him around 10. Maybe the 9th, again, depending on who's there. There are a few backs who I would take. But, I mean, we talked about this a little bit before the show.
Yeah.
But most of them I would probably have Fournette over. It's kind of like the Marlon Mack thing, except to a lesser extent, because Mack does have that job and he is the starter.
Sure. And there's been word that Jonathan Taylor is struggling a little bit with catching passes in camp, so.
Yeah, I feel a lot less safe taking Fournette earlier than that, but, I mean, we've seen guys fall, and I've taken shots on guys before, so why not one more time?
Yeah, it's tough for me to exactly assess his value just because I know that 8, 9, 10 round is usually where I'm shooting for one of those back half quarterbacks that still have great upside.
Mm-hmm.
So probably for me, I'd peg it at the 9th because I'm either grabbing one of those guys in the 8th, like maybe a Matty Ice, or if Carson Wentz is fine by the start of the season, so by the end of this week when we draft, I'd probably go with them over him, but then if those guys aren't there, then I can see myself taking him in the 9th pretty comfortably because he's, like I said, I see him as basically the reverse of Mac. If I feel comfortable with my running backs that I don't need him for a bit and I can let him develop on a new team and potentially take over the role and be a late game guy, I might be in on that, or it might just be letting someone else take him and hopefully they're relying on him too much. Their team struggles and I can trade for him midway through the season.
Sure. I will say, just selfishly, I hope he comes to the Patriots because I think that it'd be dangerous pairing him up with Cam Newton. And as much as I love Damian Harris, let's be real, Leonard Fournette's more talented than Damian Harris.
All of that, please no.
So I would
waited too long.
I would be very excited if he has to fall to 21 in the waiver order to come to the Patriots. But if he falls that far and old Billy Boy signs him, hot dog, sign me up. I'm excited.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time Bill signed an ancient running back. Do you remember just so far as recently as you guys signed Lamar Miller?
Or when we signed Steven Jackson and we ran him 20-something times against the Dolphins and lost. Yeah, that was great.
Bill loves kicking the tire. But Leonard Fournette would potentially be like the most talented running back the Patriots have really ever had. I mean, would you put it I would be just quick sidebar for because I know Frankie's a Cowboys fan, but we're Patriots fans, so I would be the happiest boy. After all the opt-outs we've had and Brady leaving for Tampa Bay, which obviously I think is actually probably a good thing, but still it's upheaval in a already tumultuous season. If we could get Leonard Fournette at the stroke of midnight right before the season starts and just unleash Leonard Fournette and Cam Newton in the league, that's a dream.
Yeah, I think it works for the town as well because as we know, just living in Boston, whether you're a fan or not, you know how much we ache for the everyone against us, scrappy guys. Even though we always have Tom Brady, like everyone's against us, screw the world, and then you get two first-round picks let go by their team who feel slighted, come to a team and get to show their talents against the league like a just big middle finger to everyone else. I'd be so in on it.
Plus, I mean, Leonard Fournette, he just runs over people. He is not a dancing, avoid people running back. He's going through you. That is a very Boston, the big bad Bruins type mentality for the team. I would be so happy.
I'm just the internal screaming meme right now. I'm just looking at both you guys and I've waited so many years for this moment.
You might have to wait one more.
All
right, you guys ready to get to some stamp of approvals?
Let's get these stamps going.
Frankie, take us away. So, actually, before you do, just to let our audience know, we're each doing 2 players are putting our stamp of approval on. As I briefly explained before, these are going to be players that we are unequivocally saying are, would you say league winners? Guys that we're targeting in all formats. We're trying to get them as much as we can this year because we think that they are excellent fantasy or excellent football players who that will also translate to excellent fantasy points for your team.
Yeah, ideally these guys are just going to be crutches to fantasy championships.
Yeah.
They're going to be guys that you can anchor your team on while you take the riskier picks around them.
The pillars upon which your trophy is lifted. Yes. Frankie, take us away.
So you guys are ready to start this episode of Keeping Up with the Joneses? So
I was actually curious if you were going to go Aaron Jones with how shook you were by Quadzilla, so...
Again, disclaimers are all on the take. But actually, my first player isn't Aaron Jones. Would it shock you guys to say that he is not my favorite Jones in the NFL?
No, I'd say Julio
Jacoby.
Jones is your favorite
It's
Jones.
probably Jacoby Jones.
It is Jacoby Jones. But we're not talking about Jacoby Jones. We're talking about Julio here. Guy with an ADP 11, wide receiver 3 off boards. I think that he's being incredibly slept on just because of the running back importance this year. Maybe not with our league specifically, because our league does typically tend to focus on those wide receivers as well, kind of split the difference. But over the last 5 years...
Frank, it's okay. You can say it. We have a friends and family league.
I mean... Fair enough. With the touchdown volume not really always being on his side, 8.6, 3, 8.6 over the last 5. He's always been more of the just heavy usage yardage guy, topping 1,400 in the last 5 seasons. We're going to round up from last season where he hit 1,396. Falcons, 3rd most passing yards in the NFL, or passing attempts rather, 5th most in yards, and 8th most passing TDs. So the volume's definitely there still. I think they're going to be a better team this year with the addition of Hayden Hurst, Todd Gurley, healthier offensive line, and Calvin Ridley going into his 3rd year. I don't see them slowing down at all. I think it's fair to say Julio's probably going to keep those numbers up. There's going to be a little bit, I think, more of that, maybe a little bit of regression in targets with Gurley and Hurst, and Ridley being a little bit more experienced, but I don't think it's outlandish to say he's going to hit 1,400 yards again. Maybe the touchdown volume won't be there with Gurley being one of the better backs in the league.
Well, and keep in mind, Austin Hooper had a lot of targets last season. He's not there anymore, so Hurst probably isn't stealing from Julio.
Yeah, I'm more worried about Gurley being that pass catcher back, and honestly, that's what's worrying me about the touchdowns. But again, he's never really been that touchdown guy. He's always been the high yardage guy, the big play guy. So I think if you get a running back in the first, if you have one of the later picks, and then you swing back in the second and get Julio with an early second, or you can, in my opinion, I don't think it's a reach to take him at where he's going at 11. But if you can take the chance and wait and get him and pair him with one of those first-round running backs, I think that's tremendous value.
Did you know that Devonta Freeman had 70 targets last season and 59 catches? It feels like he had 7 targets.
I was gonna say I didn't know Devonta Freeman played last season.
Yeah, that's how it felt. It felt like he did not play. But no, I do really like Julio mainly also because he's slipping down boards because people are like he is like this steadfast, like he's like, I don't want to say he's not sexy because he is a very good receiver, and I always love him. But
fantasy football loves touchdowns. Julio caps out at like 6.
He's averaged 6 over
and
the
it
last
doesn't
5.
make sense because you figure the more catches is more opportunity.
I mean, there was that one season where he got tackled like 10 times on the one.
Yeah, like I said, that's why it's like statistically,
Yes,
based on
I
all
know.
evidence with Julio, he should be getting the end zone more. And I think if we see a bit of a swing back from Calvin Ridley and getting all these monster numbers at touchdown, if Calvin Ridley comes down to about an 8 touchdown season, we could see Julio flirting with double digits. Like, he is talented enough to be there.
I'm just not counting on it anymore. I love Julio though, and one of the big reasons I love him is as you said, he is slipping down boards somehow. He's actually going after Tyreek Hill right now. Like, he should be in the same talk as Michael Thomas and Devontae Adams, where he's like, one of the best receivers for fantasy and in the league, and somehow he is going as wide receiver 4. Like, that's bonkers. I agree. Take Julio everywhere. But Tally, who's your first guy?
So I was kind of going back and forth with who I should start with. So I will, keep the train going with old wide receivers. My guy's a little bit further down the board, and Adam Thielen. I love Adam Thielen this year, mainly because of his quarterback, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a very efficient, short game manager, and with where Adam Thielen's going, he's going as like the 11th, 12th receiver off the board, currently ranked as the wide receiver 11, ADP of 31. I think he's a steal this season. So that on top of just his natural talent, we've seen last year in his short season, he graded out as the QBR in passes attempted to him. He was the wide receiver 3. And on top of that, no interceptions toward him. So Kirk Cousins can rely on him. And now Kirk Cousins is down another talented receiver. He's got Justin Jefferson, who we all know, shortened practices, less chance to get cohesion with a rookie, and rookie wide receivers already, they're not going to produce in their first year.
They do still have BC Johnson.
But the safety blanket's there, which we know Kirk Cousins loves. When he was with Washington and he had Jordan Reed, we all thought Kirk Cousins was a tight end guy. No, he's a safety blanket guy. Whoever can be that for him, he's going to feed targets, and we saw that the year where he chained together 9, 10, 1,100-yard games, broke the record. Like, the guy churns out production, and he does it at a consistent clip. He is just he's going to be a wide receiver 1. It's not even a question in my mind. And when people are like, oh, he's 30, he was just hurt, and they want to try and give him this injury-prone tag, he hadn't missed a game until last year. 5 years in the league and hadn't missed a game. And then he had his injury-prone season. He's back. There's targets off the board. Clearly, Kyle Rudolph isn't anyone that Kirk Cousins believes in, because we would have seen that by now. So everything pointing to it. I mean, we know that they want to pound the rock, and they picked up Zimmer, who is more of a running style coach, but he's more of a defensive-minded coach. So they're going to lean on Kubiak, who is an offensive-minded coach, to call more of the plays. So in a season like this, I don't see any reason why they run and utilize their talented 30-year-old receiver who he's not on a contract year, but next year he is looking at an opt-out for the Vikings where they can cut him for $5 million, and they would easily be interested in doing that because he's a top 12 paid wide receiver. So if he doesn't show out, if he doesn't perform, he's going to get cut, and they'll just go with Justin Jefferson if Justin Jefferson shows out. So not only is the team motivated to use him because he's such a safe option, but Adam Thielen has reason to want to be as productive as possible to maintain his contract and maintain his position with the Vikings. So, I mean, all these things coming together, I think he's a massive steal for any fantasy team in the third. And for people trying to go that double running back strategy, he should be a high priority target for you in the third.
Yeah, he's definitely somebody that I've been looking at in that range because that is where my third round pick falls. If he falls to me, if it's him and Cooper on boards, I'm probably still going to take Cooper, even though it's more congested offense. But, I mean, I don't think Thielen's a bad pick there. I think that I agree with everything you said. He's definitely the most trusted person in that target tree. And, Cousins is just a safe quarterback.
So I'm going to go in a different direction here. I'm going to talk my running back first, and then I'm going to go with my wide receiver second. You guys have known this was coming since last year when I was fighting with Jeff to get this guy on my roster, and Jeff finally dropped him because I missed him in the draft, and I added him immediately. Nick Chubb. I've talked about him already in our favorite early round picks episode, and I'm going right back to the well here. A big reason that I love where Chubb is going, that I love Chubb's season where he's going, running back 11, he's being completely disregarded by fantasy owners. And it's all because Kareem Hunt's there and he had a bad-ish second half of the season, but no one's factoring in all of the good things that have happened for the Browns this offseason. I mean, their O-line's gotten better. They added a new head coach who isn't Freddie. He doesn't look like he should be literally working in a kitchen. No offense to anyone who works in the kitchen, but Freddie Kitchens does not look like he is, someone with the mental capacity to be a NFL head coach. They brought in Dalvin Cook's offensive coordinator from last year, Kevin Stefanski, who loves to pound the rock. He loves to use, a single back. That's why Dalvin Cook had a ton of value last year until he got hurt. And we just aren't going to see Chubb unless you guys think he's a bad running back, which I don't think he is. He's shown he is averaging over 5 yards a carry in his NFL career. We're not going to see him get 15 attempts inside the 5 again for negative yards. That's just not going to happen. He had heavy red zone usage. He's on what should be an excellent offense. The offense is looking healthy. They added Austin Hooper, who's another dangerous receiving threat. They brought in Kevin Stefanski. Baker Mayfield's going to another year. Odell Beckham should be finally healthy. I don't see why you wouldn't want Nick Chubb on your team. I mean, I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the holdouts. I mean, he's at the point for me where I'd be considering taking him over a guy like Dalvin Cook. Not Alvin Kamara, because I think Kamara still is the higher. I'd consider taking Chubb over Dalvin Cook at this point, because I think Dalvin's more likely to hold out than Kamara. And I don't think that Chubb and Dalvin are that much different. I think Chubb and Dalvin both have a very similar ceiling, but you can get Chubb in the early second, and you're not going to get Dalvin if you're drafting outside of the top 6, most likely. He is a smash pick for me. I'm regretting, because we get to choose our picks in our league. I'm honestly kind of regretting the fact that I chose 2. I mean, I love Saquon, but if I'm drafting in the back half, I can draft Kenyon Drake or Miles Sanders or CEH in the first, and then swing back around and grab Nick Chubb. Smash that buy button. Give me all the shares.
Yeah, and even at the end of last season, we did see the Browns kind of, I guess the best term is pulling it together when it was too late. They are an offense that should be good, and I mean, Chubb is one guy that I'm looking at in the second.
And even when we saw they were bad, Chubb was still great.
Yeah.
I mean, he regularly ripping off massive runs. He might be the best pure runner in the league. It's madness to me.
Yeah, I like Chubb. Like I said, I think the biggest thing that's surprising to me this year is everyone's on the Kareem Hunt train because of his usage as a pass catcher, and if Chubb goes down or something like that, something happens to Chubb, then he becomes like a top 5 guy immediately. Well, no one's talking about it in the reverse, where what happens if Kareem Hunt goes down? I mean, that just vaults Chubb into an easy top 5 conversation for me, and I do believe
already be there.
Yeah, he could get there without the passing volume that you hope for, but I mean, we know there's a ceiling with limited pass volume, i.e. Derrick Henry, but I think Chubb is just a safe guy in the back that you like. I mean, I would do exactly what Ian's saying and grab a guy that either take Chubb if you think if you know someone else is a homer for him in your league, and then just grab another running back to put with him, and then you get these 2 hogs to just drag your team into the fantasy playoffs at very least.
Well, and you're talking about what happens at the opposite. The other thing you're not considering too, or that maybe not you, but no one's really considering, it is a new offense in town. What if Kevin Stefanski just doesn't want to use Kareem Hunt? We've seen that he likes to use a primary back What if he just keeps Chubb on the field for 75% of the plays and Kareem Hunt just a change of pace back, not specifically their passing down back? What if Kareem Hunt just goes out there when Chubb needs to go sit down because he's running wild and needs to get some oxygen so he can go run wild some more? I mean, that everyone's looking for once, because usually people just look at what could happen and in the positive. Everyone's looking at this like it's a pure negative scenario. Chubb is a better running back than Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt might be the better pass catcher, but Chubb isn't a bad pass catcher. I don't think that there's enough that Kareem Hunt offers that you can just outright disregard the fact that Chubb might still eat into his passing down work and not the other way around.
Yeah, and the other thing I think about is the fact that Jarvis Landry is already dealing with an injury, so we could see basically them trying to use Hunt like Tariq Cohen as a minor slot receiver who will be on the field with Chubb. So both of them will basically enhance each other's value, while if Jarvis is down for a couple of weeks, those first few weeks could be huge for both of them.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, Frankie, we already know who your second player is. Tell us why your second favorite is Aaron Jones and why you're wrong. I'm kidding with the second, but tell us why you like Aaron Jones.
I will say, it has been a tumultuous relationship with me and Aaron Jones over this offseason. Based on
he's having infidelitous thoughts. He just sees those quads. He's like, oh.
Based on further review,
the shorts got shorter.
Have you been saying AJ Dillon's name in bed instead of Aaron Jones?
I'm a little bit worried. I think that Aaron Jones will still be an RB1. However, I don't think that he will be the touchdown leader. That is because of Mr. Quadzilla. I think that look at the size. Aaron Jones is still probably going to get the volume.
Would you be ready to call AJ Dillon the king in the girth?
I just don't think that the touchdown volume is going to be there for him to have the sky high ceiling I originally planned. But I still think that, let's not go counting our chickens before they hatch. AJ Dillon is still a rookie. He still needs some time to get acclimated.
So we don't have a breaking news buzzer, and this isn't quite breaking news, but I just want to interrupt Frankie real fast. A report just came out that said that Leonard Fournette would love to go to Los Angeles, and that Jalen Ramsey has been talking to Sean McVay, and so it's likely that he ends up in LA.
I don't hate it.
I hate that.
I don't hate it that much.
Because we don't need to kill another second-round running back by taking out a third-round running back and just pouring into a bowl of diarrhea that would become the soup of Eckler doing the passing work, which he's good at, but now if he goes there, then Eckler just drops to the 5th round for me.
So going back to Aaron Jones.
Oh, were we talking about him? I thought we were talking about AJ Dillon.
Going at the back of the second round, running back 14 off boards. I don't quite understand that part, but I think if you're getting him in the second round, you're not going to get that ceiling that you had last year.
Sorry, we have to cite our sources. That's per Michael Fabiano.
You're not going to see the sky-high ceiling that you saw last year, but you're gonna definitely get the value that you're looking for at the back of the second round. I think the yardage is going to be. Similar to Julio, I think the yardage is going to be there. We're not going to see 19 touchdowns though. And me personally, drafting Aaron Jones in the second, I am looking at AJ Dillon later.
Yeah, I still like the talent. My dislike for him has been that he was creeping up draft boards and being a little overdrafted for my taste, and that the Packers have shown time and time again they don't want to use him. And I always have to think back of, just like I said, once again, to give you credit on this one, Ian, it doesn't matter how much you like the guy. It doesn't matter how good the guy is. If the coaching staff does not want to use him, i.e. Leonard Fournette, who just got cut, doesn't matter how good you are. If the coaches don't want to use you, you're not getting used. Yeah. So those red flags keep flashing in my mind, and it makes me want to take guys over him in that second round that have a better hold but are more question marky or unknown. But when it comes to him, there's a reason why Matthew Berry and the fantasy community as a whole has been banging the free Aaron Jones drum for so long.
Well, and it's just one last thing too. It's I talk about the touchdown regression, but if you take away half of his touchdowns from last year, he's still the RB7 that you're getting in the second round. Back of the second round too. So
No, back of the second round, I'm much more interested in him.
Yeah, he was going a little bit high before.
I was off when he was early second. Back second, you're talking about him in the same conversation as like Chris Carson and Austin Eckler and good running, objectively good running backs who have some question marks around him. I'm much more willing to take him in the back of the second than in the beginning of the second when he's in the same conversation as, Miles Sanders or Kenyon Drake or Josh Jacobs or Nick Chubb. Like, he's just, unfortunately, because of how the Packers insist on using him, he's just not in the conversation he should be in because he's not given the opportunities. And when the Packers showed that, I'm going to go back to Leonard Fournette as well. Earlier in the season, everyone was talking about what's going to happen with Leonard Fournette, and then everyone just forgot about it because nothing happened immediately. And now look, he's gone. The Packers have already tipped their hand. They tipped their hand in May when they drafted A.J. Dillon in the second round. It is not Aaron Jones' job. He might be able to keep it if he plays well enough, but it is not his job going into the year. So I think back of the second is a fair range for him where, he's a very talented back, but there's some risk.
Hashtag free Aaron Jones.
Yeah, absolutely. If the Packers could just trade him or maybe just give him to the Patriots, that'd be great.
Yeah, just give us Leonard Fournette and
Please, God, no.
But yeah, who's your second guy?
I'm also going to be talking about a very highly discussed running back, a guy that is loved by Matthew Berry as well. I'm talking Mr. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a guy I was off to start this.
Everyone loves Clyde Edwards-Helaire at this point.
Everyone just doesn't know how much they love him. That's the bigger question. Everyone's in on him, but people are like, do I take him here? Do I take him here? I think it is definitely one of those things where I agree with exactly what Matthew Berry said. At his price point, you're either all in or you're all off, and you have to make that decision this week because you're probably drafting this week or this weekend. So when I look back, I was off rookies because of the shortened season. I was off rookies just because I'd rather have the established thing. I'd rather have the safer guy like a Derrick Henry or a Dalvin Cook. But with all this holdout news, with all these injuries that keep cropping up, with Damian Williams being no longer there in the picture, with them not picking up another running back that it's going to threaten his job, with the fact that the GM himself said he is exactly the kind of running back we need in this system.
Oh, and don't forget that Andy Reid compared him to Brian Westbrook,
yeah,
who is a pretty good running back, if I recall.
Oh, yeah, I was going to get all into that. The fact that Brian Westbrook was a regular RB5 for Andy Reid.
Eagles legend.
Oh, yeah.
Andy Reid's put out some really good running backs over the years, too.
Yeah, it's part of what I was getting into. Andy Reid running backs, this is per Matthew Berry. Andy Reid running backs average about 18 points per game, which would have been the RB8 last season. So that ceiling, that floor alone just makes me interested in this kid. And you have to remember, this points per game is baked in with guys like Spencer Ware, Charmandrick West, Damian Williams, who is on and off. When he has studs like CEH, he produces Kareem Hunts and Jamal Charles level guys who I'm all the way in on. And then you go, well, he's a rookie.
Don't forget about LaShawn McCoy too.
Oh yeah, I was just kind of giving a couple. I didn't want to sit here and just rattle names off. Like I said, back to David Westbrook. Going back to the rookie thing though, why people are off rookies, and I'm starting to shy back onto them. I'm all the way off, almost all the way off on wide receivers because of the lack of, lack of practicing. But rookie running backs produce. They produce very regularly. Just Saquon, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, and Miles Sanders, all very recently, all produced, with the exception of only David Montgomery and Sony Michel, top 15 finishes. So,
sure. And I don't think you could say it was Dave Montgomery's fault that he didn't get a top 15 finish. That entire Bears offense around him was a garbage pile.
Right. And still, he was getting drafted in the fifth, sixth round that year. And
about where he's going this year, yeah.
Right. And he still finishes the RB25, which if he was your RB2 or 3, you were fine with that. Like I said, he wasn't winning you weeks, but he was keeping your team afloat. Like I said, it's just all these factors that keep playing into why CEH can succeed, and all these reasons why he should fail are just being eliminated in my mind. So when you have a guy who is the now prototype for what you want in a running back, the pass catching guy who can work out of a screen pass, or be more of the scat back style, because we're not in the hard nosed running up the middle, smash him up type. That's why everyone's surprised when Derrick Henry was as effective as he was. Like, I look at all these factors and I don't see why, if you're sitting at 6 through 8, 6 through 9, snap him up. If he falls to you, snap him up, because you're either going to gamble with a running back who is more injury prone, or you're going to have to take a wide receiver in a running back shallow draft league.
I gotta say, I love this take, because right now I take him at 4.
If
I'm on the board, I'm at the 4th pick, I take him, because I've already said that I take him over Derrick Henry, with no chance of a holdout from him and a chance of a holdout from Alvin Kamara or Dalvin Cook. I'm risk averse. I will take CEH in what might be the best offense in the NFL over either of them.
That offense is just.
Yeah,
I think he's a perfect fit there.
Yeah, once you get past CMC, Saquon, and Zeke, I think it's CEH or bust.
Yeah, like I said, to another tip of the cap to Matthew Berry, as he points out, all these other running back performances from Andy Reid, he never had Pat Mahomes in those offenses. So, I mean, who knows what the sky is for this kid this year, but the floor is very high.
Also, if you don't take him at 6, I don't know who's between me and you, but I'm definitely taking him at 8.
He won't make it to you at 8.
Yeah, he won't.
Yeah. Sorry, Frankie. You're SOL this year. Maybe you better trade up. Talk to someone in the top half of the draft.
Talk to someone you might do a show with. I'll take a firstborn.
So I'm going to jump back to wide receiver here, and I'm going to talk about. Admittedly, he's moving up boards, but he's still not moving up high enough where I am thinking he's still not extreme value. Robert Woods. He is a guy that I am smashing that stamp of approval down on. He is going to churn out fantasy points this year. So per PFF, 2019, Robert Woods was 12th in targets, tied for 8th with 90 receptions, 14th in receiving yards, and tied for 74th in receiving touchdowns. One of those things is not like the other.
Is it the receiving yards?
Yes, Frankie, it's the receiving yards. You are deluding yourself if you think that Robert Woods is going to tie for 74th again when he's basically guaranteed to at least get those same numbers barring injury. And if Robert Woods doesn't tie for 74th, we're talking about him in the top 2, maybe 3 rounds right now, in the same range as Juju and Amari Cooper and Kenny Golladay and Chris Godwin, not in the range of DJ Chark and Cooper Kupp, and guys that I love, Devontae Parker, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, guys that I'm a fan of, but I'm sorry, he is in a better situation to succeed than them. He might not be more talented than a lot of them, but the Rams throw like almost no other team in the NFL. Oh, they also got rid of Brandon Cooks, who was 72 targets last year. I don't understand why Robert Woods is going so low. I don't really care. I'm going to take him everywhere I can. I hate these moving up boards a little bit, but he's so good, and he's a high floor. Combined with the fact that he's in a Sean McVay offense that likes to throw. Jared Goff clearly likes him. He gets a ton of volume, and he's bound for positive touchdown regression. We could easily see Robert Woods being taken in the middle of the 4th right now and end up as a top 10 receiver, just carrying fantasy owners that get him because he could realistically be drafted as your 3rd wide receiver. Say you go running back, wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. You're drafting at 6 or something, and you go Michael Thomas, turn back around and get Nick Chubb, and then you go Kenny Golladay, Robert Woods. That's a realistic team right there. And that's an insane wide receiver core, having Robert Woods anchoring you at the wide receiver 3 spot or flex spot if you don't do 3 wide receivers. The value that he puts out is crazy because you're basically getting what should be a high-end third round wide receiver, low end second round wide receiver in like back of the fourth to middle of the fourth.
Yeah, speaking to the Rams throwing the ball a ton, Jared Goff did have the most passing attempts in the NFL last year.
He had 626 attempts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the struggles that the Rams have had combined with the fact they just got rid of Todd Gurley, I just see that they're going to be behind in more games than above, so they're going to need to throw just as much as they did last year. And on top of that, he's just been such a safe guy. There have been, as someone who owned him last year, there were definitely going to be weeks where he's not winning you a week, but he almost rarely will ever cost you a week. You're never going to you're never going to sit there and see a dud like you might see with a Mike Evans or an Amari Cooper. You're going to have to pay 2 rounds higher for. That's why when I go into it and I preach in our show, we all have preached, you have to mix up your wide receivers between, safe floors and high ceilings. Because if you just take all safe floors, then none of them are going to steal you a week and you could lose because they all just went out and gave you 10.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you grab an Amari Cooper, go grab Robert Woods 2 rounds later, and now you've got high ceiling and low floor.
I also want to point out, Jared Goff had the lowest touchdown rate of his career last year, aside from his rookie year when he didn't start the whole year. He only threw for 22 touchdowns last year. The year before, 32. The year before that, 28. Jared Goff is another guy who's going to bounce back, and I don't feel comfortable enough about him to make him my stamp of approval, but that entire Rams passing offense is going to bounce back because Jared Goff objectively had a down year. He threw for almost 100 more attempts in 2019 than he did in 2018, and he had less yards. He had less yards with almost 100 more attempts, and he also had 10 less touchdowns. That's going to bounce back. My side stamp, if I had one, would be Cooper Kupp, because they're both going to be the primary beneficiaries of this. Either one of them, if you can't get Robert Woods, get Cooper Kupp. That's all, because one of them, or if not both of them, are going to have fantastic seasons, and they are exactly what you want in a fantasy receiver. A guy who is in a truncated target tree in a pass-heavy offense run by a smart head coach.
Yeah,
I love where both of them are going. I want as much as the Rams are my heaviest stack in best ball at this point. I have about 20% Ram stacks in best ball. They're awesome. Mic drop, whatever. That's all I got to say about that. If you don't like them, you must not like winning.
Your mic's on an arm, so you can't drop it.
I know, Frankie. All right, let's do a beer check here. We're running up on time.
I'm at about 1.5. So
I'm about 1 2/4, 2/3.
This would be 3 for me.
Oh, well.
We give Vitaly an easy beer to drink, and he powers through them.
Yeah. So I also, as we get to the end, and you mentioned side stamp, I was thinking, you know what, this is an easy one for me to cruise. Why don't I take one instead of being handed it as we tied last time? So I think I want to talk about my side stamp, who is I was interested in this year, and I guess it's almost kind of a double side stamp. It's the Jags. I am so in on Teal Steele, and his confidence in himself is something I love in a quarterback, and the fact that the Jags are going to suck this year. He's going to throw a lot, so he's like a minor stamp, but the actual side stamp is DJ Chark. He's clearly Teal Steele's number 1 target, and when you're looking at this kid, they're going to be down so much. Reichwell Armstead, I'm sorry, he's no Leonard Fournette, so their running game is going to be abysmal. So they're going to have to do something on offense, and it's probably not going to be running. So we're going to see the Jags' passing game go up. I mean, we're going to see them lose a lot of games, 30-20, but this kid is going to have opportunity to score because nobody else in that system is going to. As much as I love Tyler Eifert, he's going to give you 4 good weeks. Maybe he's a DFS cheap guy you want to buy in a juicy matchup, but he'll be out halfway through the season. DJ Chark is alone with Teal Steele on this sinking ship that is the Jags. So, like I said, if I can throw a half stamp at somebody, it's at DJ Chark this year, who sadly is going the same range as Rob Ward, so it's going to be a hard decision. But if he gets stolen from me, I'm going to be very happy with Chark this year, who is going into his 3rd year. He broke out in his second.
He is typically going like a round after Woods too.
Yeah, so he is following the wide receiver progression you love to see. Is not a great rookie year, breakout second year, now his third year with a quarterback that loves him and a quarterback that is so confident in himself he's going to give you free beer if you draft him in the first. So, I mean, I love the whole situation. I love the nickname. I love both of their nicknames. I'm in.
So how do we get that free beer?
You have to draft Gardner Minshew in the first and send him a screenshot of you drafting him in the first.
Yep.
Or I guess picture your draft board if you're doing a live draft. So, please, Frankie, draft Gardner Minshew.
Oh,
in the
the
first.
downtown league is on Sunday, so you know.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us this week. Make sure to tune in. If you missed it at the beginning of the podcast, make sure to tune in on Sunday when we do a live stream of our downtown draft. It's the league run by our very own Frankie Santiago. You will get the three of us sitting here around this table giving you our draft insights as we slog through that one.
That's at 8 p.m. Eastern, by the way.
Yes, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be sending out a tweet ahead of time to remind everyone if you forget. So if you aren't already, make sure to follow us on our socials. You can see them on the screen around you, but it's at the Fantasy 4-Pack, at F4P_Ian, at Senpai Koala, and at the Spoon. That's THEFPOON.
Spoon Boys.
And if you haven't already, give us a follow on or subscribe on YouTube. So slap that notification bell so when we go live,
Like all of our videos,
you will know.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, always feel free to shoot them.
Yeah. Well, that'll be us. That'll be it for us this week. We are taking the rest of the week off due to it being draft season, and we are busy. So we will rejoin you guys on Sunday. We hope to see a lot of you guys there.